Hello and welcome to yet another video. This one will be once again unscripted, and I'm going to cover a few basic things that I see a lot of people have problems with, primarily with rigging, primarily with the import process, and common things that you can do to prevent headaches later on. Um, Once again, this is primarily to do with rigging and primarily in Blender, as you can see here. Um, a lot of these, I'll also go into Unity actually and show a very vital part of the process for rigging to ensure that you have everything set up properly, um, just so that I can address some more common issues. This is not meant to be a coverall. Again, this is just something to cover the most basic things that I keep seeing repeated in the Avatar's channel. Primarily paying attention to the topic up here, for example, where it says leave upper chest blank. We'll get back to that later, but that is kind of an important point. So first off, let's go ahead and import a fresh model. I'm going to delete everything. Actually, I wonder if I can enable the OSD on screen buttons. OSD key. Really? Hold on. Let's do some live editing here. On-screen display, what's it called? Screencast keys is no longer distributed. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab this. Save this as, going to download, save, and we will go here. Here's also a quick tutorial on how to install crap. How about that? Go up, go down, and this was called Space View 3D Screencast Keys. Okay, we'll enable that. Let's make sure it's actually on. Start display. Excellent. So you see down here, I have a little display that shows what I'm pressing, so you can kind of see what's going on. So again, I'll hit A twice or 4 times here. I will delete everything here. This is just before the import process. Let's go ahead and import something with the new version of MMD tools. Let's grab my repaired Cerno. This Cerno has a repaired name structure, so I don't have to do any translation. I will go ahead and leave the physics in the display in just so I can show how you remove the joints and the rigid bodies, just to be sure. There's 2 ways to go about it. So let's go ahead and import it, and I'll show you those 2 ways. So we have the model here. Let's go ahead and click on shade list just so we can get the textures here. There's Cerno. Let us first off expand this up here. This is called the hierarchy. If someone is talking to you and trying to help you and they refer to the hierarchy, it's this thing up here. It's a lot like Unity. Unity has a very similar thing. First thing we're going to notice is that there are 2 things called joints and rigid bodies. VRChat does not care about joints or rigid bodies, so we can remove these one of 2 ways. We can either right click and hit delete hierarchy, or we can do it the old way, which works just as well, which is hitting Alt H, which will unhide everything. And then we can select the mesh and hide it. We can select the bones, if I can find a free bone, and hide it. Select everything by pressing B for the box select and then deleting it like that. You'll still have this stuff up here, so honestly I actually prefer this previous method. I'm going to hit Control Z a bunch here. What we can do is just right click, delete hierarchy, right click, delete hierarchy, and all of our joints and rigid bodies are gone. Now what we can do is we can start looking at the bone structure. Let's go ahead and assume that we've decimated this. Pay no attention to the tries up there. Let's pretend that this is a decimated version. So we're about to get ready to get this thing to a point where we can import it. But there are a bunch of things that we need to worry about with the rigging. First off, let's make the rig a little bit more visible. Let's do that by clicking on the Armature Mode right here after selecting the model. We'll change this to... Actually, hold on. Why are you wireframe? Oh well, we'll let it stick with wireframe. That's fine. We'll do that. So anyways, you'll see here first that there's first a object which groups everything together here, and then under the object is another object. You want to only have this object present, so you can right click on this object, hit delete, and it will bounce this one down to the base. For future-proofing purposes, just for the sake of in case you want to add eye tracking later, let's go ahead and double click on this and rename this Armature. And that's how you spell armature, not with an I. We'll do the same thing here. armature, and the mesh we'll call body. So again, this is for future proofing if you later want to add in the capability for you to do eye tracking. It's not necessary for the renaming. Removing that top level object and making sure that this group object is the top level object, however, is pretty important. It helps save you a little bit of headache later on. So next what we're going to do is let's look at the bone structure. First off, you'll see in the armature, this is a bone called all parents. Enter edit mode by hitting tab while you're in the 3D view. A lot of these like buttons I'm pushing, you can only hit in the 3D view. You can see I'm not switching in and out of tab edit mode no matter how many times I press tab until I move into the 3D view. The context of where your cursor is in Blender is very important. If you're over here, it does one thing. If you're over here, it does another thing. So first off, let's go back to edit mode. Let's go to all parents. This bone right here is something that's used by Miku Miku Dance. We don't use it in VRChat, so we can actually remove that. And you're probably going to say, oh no, why would I delete that? It's going to delete everything underneath it. Well, no, deleting in this particular case doesn't delete all the children. It only deletes the bone that we're on. So once again, we're going to select it, move our cursor into the 3D view, hit delete, and then hit delete bones. Now, if you look at what it just did there, I'll hit Control Z to go back and then Shift Control Z to go forward. So watch. All parents, and then here's all of the children of all parents. And now it bounces everything down. So now center and then these two IK parent bones are in the base. They have no parents. They are the top level bone. So they have no parent right there. Next, what we're going to do is we're also going to delete wow, words, they're difficult. We are going to want to delete center. This is also not a bone that we use. You can see that only upper and lower body are parented to it. We care about upper and lower body, but we don't care about center. So once again, select, delete, it's gone. Pretty easy. Left foot IK parent and right foot IK parent, in this case, for this particular model, they are safe to delete, including all children. So you can see that this one has two bones underneath it. Each one is the children of the previous. The best way to select all these bones is if you go into you select the top level bone, go into the 3D view, hit Shift G, and you click children. This will select all bones that are the children of the bone that you have selected and keep that bone selected. So what we can do is now hit delete. There you go. It's now all gone. You can't right click and delete hierarchy with bones like this. I guess it's just a design feature to prevent you from misclicking and deleting your entire armature by accident or something like that. Either way, do the same thing for the other one for the right IK and delete bones. Now, let's stop for a minute because this is important. This is only what you do for this particular model. Every MMD is different. MMDs are weird insofar that they have a set structure for each particular MMD. They have bones that are named specific things when you keep them untranslated. The reason why they do that is so when you're making a model in MMD in PMX editor, you can merge bones, merge skeletons, and they will they'll merge fairly painlessly. So all the bones, the base bones, like the spine here, the arm bones, the head bones, the main bones here. Oh wow, that maybe did screw it up a little bit. Well, either way, the main bones here are, there we go, are named the same. So if I brought in a hat to put on Cerno or new shoes or something like that, the idea is that you can just merge those two skeletons and it would merge the weight paints and everything like that, and it's relatively painless in PMX editor. However, that is not really something you can do here in Blender. We have a little bit more of a painful process for that kind of thing, but we're not going to cover that in this video. I'm just simply illustrating why these skeletons are laid out the way they are. So back to this. Lower body is what we consider the hip. As you can see, all of the skirt bones here are parented to the hip bone. So let's go ahead and just rename this hips. Upper body is the first spine bone. In this particular case, we just want to call this spine. Waist upper is one big bone that covers the upper spine, otherwise known in Unity as the chest. Past there, we have the neck, which I'm going to capitalize for future proofing if I ever want to eye track this model. There's the bones for the ribbon, which don't get put into the Unity system. Same thing for the ice wings on the back, which translated to ice blade. Then the left shoulder and the right shoulder. So this is important. In Unity, what it expects is it expects the hip bone to lead to the spine bone, to lead to the chest bone, to lead to the shoulders and the neck. Now, if you're getting errors where chest must be the parent of shoulders and neck, this is why. It's one of two things. Either you have misassigned the chest bone, or you have tried to use the upper chest bone slot in Unity. Let's go ahead and take a look at that now, actually. So you don't want to use the upper chest bone slot in Unity. It's not compatible with VRChat. It's not used in the IK. It's just not used. The SDK will not detect it as a bone. You need to leave it blank. And what I mean by leaving it blank does not mean delete the bone. What I mean by leaving it blank is, hold on, where are you? Cerno Atlas. What I mean by leaving it blank is literally leaving it blank. You do not define an upper chest. So mine is set to none. The way you do that is you pull up this little dot right here, which is the selector, and you click none, and it will set it to none. You do not use upper chest as a bone in Unity for VRChat. This must be blank. This must be blank. Just making sure that you know this must be blank. It must be set to none. What you should have is spine or hips, spine, then chest. The way that looks here is hips, spine, then chest. So there you go. All right, I've harped on that enough, but it is an extremely common problem and pretty much everyone has an issue with it. So what do we do from here? Well, I want hips to be the base, like root of the entire skeleton system. That makes things a little bit better organized. It's kind of what Unity expects. So let's go ahead and go to spine, and to change the parent of a bone, all you have to do is click on this bone right here, go here, type in the bone that you want, hips, press enter, there you go. Spine is now the parent or the child of hips. Now, here's another tip and another common problem. Models with skirts have tons of different skirt bones. This one in particular has what, 28 it looks like? Yeah, that's ridiculous. A couple of tips here. First off, if you, number one, want to put dynamic bones on this, what you need to do is you need to create a duplicate of the hip bone and then reparent all of the skirt bones to that, or rather just the top level. So let's see how to do that. So let's type in duplicate right here. I hit spacebar and I typed in dupe and it gave me what it auto-completed to. It also shows what the shortcut is, so it's Shift D. So if I hit Shift D, and then hit escape because it tries to tell me to translate it around, it gives me a new hips bone here. Hip bone is set up the exact same way. The only difference is that it doesn't have a parent. Well, actually, no, they both don't have a parent. So the only difference is it doesn't have any of the children. So how are we going to solve that? Because we want this to be the skirt root, and we're going to rename it that just for that, skirt root. Let me back up a little bit. Why am I doing this? Why am I making the skirt separate from the not parented to the hip bone? If you want to put dynamic bones on a skirt like this, and if you put the dynamic bone script with the hip bone as the root bone, bunch of weird crap starts happening in VRChat. When you sit down, your viewpoint will actually be way above your head. Movement will be a little bit screwy, stuff like that. You don't want to put any kind of script on your hip bone that impacts the movement of that hip bone, especially dynamic bone. In the current version of the whitelisted components that are available on VRChat, you don't want to, that's the case. The only script that'll do that is dynamic bone. So how do we get all these bones reparented up to the new skirt root? Well, what we need to do is we can go to hips. We'll select the hip bone right here, right there. See, I have it. We'll hit Shift G and we'll say immediate children. So what this does is it chooses all the bones, but just the first level of bones that are the children of that particular bone. Thing is I don't want to reassign spine or either of the legs. So what we'll do is we'll hold down Shift and we'll click on those 3 bones. So now all I have are just all the skirt bones. So another important thing, you're probably thinking, well, what about all these bones down here? Well, these bones aren't parented to the skirt, they're to the hips, they are parented one level up above that. So the only ones we need to care about are the top level ones. What we're going to do is we are going to set parent to active, which we can do just by hitting, actually, yep, there you just shift click on skirt root like that. The definition of an active object, whether it be a bone or anything else in Blender, is the last thing that you selected in a group. So right now, all of these are selected, but the active bone is skirt root. So we are going to type parent. We're going to go to Armature Make Parent, which is either Control P or I can just press enter here. Bonk. And we will going to keep offset. Don't hit connected. That will fuck everything up. In fact, I'll show you what happens. Yeah, look at that. That's great stuff. Hit Control Z. Let's hit Control P for parent. Keep offset, and there you go. Hips shouldn't have gotten reparented there. That's interesting. That's fine. We'll just kill this. So what I'm doing here, for some reason, the hips and everything got reparented improperly. What I'm going to do to fix that is I'm going to select hips and clear the parent by hitting the X down here. So now what I have is hips and skirt root. The only thing under skirt root are the skirt bones. Now the most important part is we now need to parent skirt root to hips. So we'll just type it right here. So there you go. We now have a skirt root, right foot, left foot, and spine. And if you want to apply a dynamic bone script to this to the skirt, you would apply it to skirt root, not to hips. So another caveat here. You wouldn't want to apply dynamic bones to this. Dynamic bones is a particularly expensive script, CPU-wise, and it is actually the primary cause of slowdowns in heavily populated areas in VRChat. So you probably would just have to go without dynamic boning all of this because you're going to destroy someone's CPU. I have a pretty decent computer, an i7-6700K. And running a little bit overstock. And if I get any more than about 20 people in the room with a significant amount of dynamic bones, it starts hitting my FPS pretty hard. And then once we get to about 60, I start dropping frames regularly. And that's not due to your graphics card, that is due to your CPU. VRChat is not a GPU-bound game in its current state. So anyways, that covers that. We'll verify right here. We have our left foot and right foot. Those are pretty much fine. There are some cases in which you will have a model that has multiple feet. And what I mean by that is it will have, especially with ones with fancy shoes that the modeler has put on there, what will happen is they'll have one armature and then another armature underneath it. What you would have to do in that case is you'll have something like called right foot and then right foot D and then right knee and right knee D. You need to parent right foot D to right foot, and then right knee D to right knee, and then right ankle D to right ankle, and then right toe D to right toe. It's a little bit complex. I can't show it here, but basically if you are finding that you have 4 legs instead of 2 in your armature, you need to parent each one of the sets to their equivalent for the other set. So basically when right foot moves, right foot D moves as well. That's not the case for this model, thankfully. The rigging was done decently well. So now what we're going to go to is we're going to look at the spine. We have the chest, we have the neck, we have the head. Everything looks great here. If you want to be extra fancy, you can do the exact same thing that we did for skirt root, but you could do it for head and call it like hair root or something. And you can move all of the hair things over to that, so you don't have to make a giant array of exclusions for dynamic bones. I haven't done that at my current model, but that's probably a good idea just for completion's sake. You would do it the same way. You would duplicate the head bone, and then you would change the parent for every single hair object to the new hair root, and then you would parent hair root to head, and that would be just about it. So another thing that we need to fix is the left and right arms. So let's look at left arm. We have left shoulder, which is right there. We have left arm, which is right there. But now we have left arm twist, which is this weird upstanding bone here. This is not the next bone. Unity is going to expect this bone here, which, as we can see, is one down. And if we go down again, we see another one, left hand torsion, and then left wrist, which is the left hand. So what we need to do is a little bit more reparenting. So let's go to left hand, or left wrist, and we're going to tell it that its parent is actually left elbow. There you go. And now we're going to go to left elbow and tell it that its parent is actually left arm. So the reason why we're doing this is because if you have this incorrectly set up and you twist your arm in VRChat using a controller, I guess this is only really relevant for people using VR. Your arm will twist, but it won't, the IK, the inverse kinematic system, won't know when to flip your arm around to make it look like that you're not twisting your own wrist into this weird, like, tinfoil looking thing. It looks very odd. Basically, it tears the mesh as you turn your hand. If you have this set up properly, then I can actually see this with my bracelet. So if I turn my hand enough, I can see the jewel in my bracelet turn around this far, right? And then if I keep turning, all of a sudden it snaps to here. It's not like it gradually moves from here to here. It snaps from here to here. And what has actually happened is the arm has rotated completely around in one frame so that I can continue rotating and it won't look unnatural on the model. So we're going to do that on this, the right shoulder as well. So we'll go to right arm. That looks fine. Right arm torsion. Nope, we don't like that one. So let's go to right elbow and tell it that its parent is actually right arm. And let's go to right elbow, right hand twist. Nope, let's tell it that its parent is actually right elbow. And there you go. So now we can see that the parenting order goes right shoulder, right arm, right elbow, right wrist, and then we have all of our finger bones. So those are the major issues with this particular model. This is a pretty dang clean MMD. There are definitely ones out there that are absolute messes. They will take a while to fix with rigging. Let's go ahead and take a look back at Unity at this configuration here, how to get to it and how to use it properly. So I'm going to go ahead and back out of here and we'll take a look. So what I have here is I have my setup, everything like that. I brought my model in, I've set everything up, whatever. But what you should really do is as soon as you import your model, the first thing you should do is you go here, you hit humanoid, and you hit apply, right? Everyone knows how to do that because you kind of have to do it, or else it's not going to work. You're not going to get a model uploaded. If you didn't know how to do that, well, it's probably your first avatar, so that's what you got to do. This probably also isn't the video to be watching first, at least. So after you've done it and you've rigged a humanoid and you've hit apply and you get a check mark here, then you now need to go to configure to look at the actual rig setup. Now, let's go ahead and phase here. Let's get out of orthographic mode so we can actually see what's going on. So we can see here that there are a couple things going on. This is a different textured model, so this is going to look a little bit different. First off, you want to check that your hip bone was mapped to the correct bone. Remember when we transferred the hip bone or the all the skirt roots over to, or all the skirt parts to the skirt root? That's what this is. I call it skirt parent in this version, but yeah. The hip bone is now this green bone here, and it has been properly assigned. The next bone up should be your spine, which is right here. The spine shouldn't really have anything underneath it except for chest. There shouldn't really be anything else to it. Next up is chest, which goes right here. If you have bones that are in between, like if you have more than one bone in between your hips and whatever is parent to your shoulders, this is what you do. All you have to do is you set the bone that is above the hips by one level to your spine, and then you skip bones in your spine until you hit whatever chest is supposed to be. Then you set chest, whatever that bone that is the parent of your neck and your shoulders, to chest. Once again, to cover a point I've already gone over a couple of times, do not use upper chest. Very important. It just screws you up. It's not going to work. Leave upper chest blank. It's the reason why it's the topic in the Discord. So now what we're going to do is check that we have the arms set up properly. So we have left shoulder, left upper arm, lower arm left, and then hand left. This was named a little bit differently than the model we were just working on, but you can see that it is set up properly. These aren't twist bones. These are actual bones for the body. And you can see that they were assigned properly here. If you have problems with the model saying that's not in T-pose, all you have to do is hit pose right here, hit enforce T-pose, and your model will snap into T-pose position. This is important for a couple of different things. If you don't enforce T-pose, then your model is going to look weird. It might be sunk into the ground, stuff like that. Just when you're all done with your assignments, enforce T-pose, check and make sure that your meshes aren't like warped or anything like that. One common thing I see is that people enforce T-pose and their fingers are like wrapped under other ones. That's because you've incorrectly assigned fingers, or that Unity has incorrectly assigned fingers. And that's okay. You just gotta assign them properly. It's not the smartest thing, detecting which fingers are correct properly, I'm sure was not an easy task for some programmer to make. What we have now is we are also going to check the legs. I have right foot, right knee, right ankle, and right toe. Toes are optional bones. They basically let you stand on your tiptoes if you are so inclined. I don't have them mapped in this particular one, mostly because a lot of the time I'm playing in seated mode, and the seated mode default height is actually shorter than I am when I'm in my seat, so I'm constantly on my tiptoes. So if I leave this unmapped, then I don't have to worry about that. Um, so anyways, once you're all done, just hit done. I'm going to revert this one because this one was fine before, and that's pretty much it. The one last tip I will leave you with is if you have an issue where your hip is like wagging forward and back a lot, like you're having problems where your hip is jutting forward, it almost looks like a table. It's a pretty simple fix. All you need to do is go into your rigging configuration here, select your spine, which I think you can do just by clicking that, and actually translate it up. So click on the green arrow and move it up. Don't do it too much because it will stretch the geometry slightly, but you want to give it about this much distance or so. Uh, it's a issue with MMDs just because of where they place the hips and where they place the spine. Doing this fixes it. That's really all I can say on the subject. I don't know exactly why it fixes it. It's probably just MMD weirdness. Once again, I'm going to hit revert, and I'm going to hit done. I think that is pretty much it. If you have any questions or any other things that weren't addressed in this video, please leave a comment. You can also contact me on the Discord. Um, I believe that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. Bye.